Normally, you say, I don't get any complaints. I'm sure my stuff is going through. You're adorable. Unless you have hard data and analytics on your email deliverability, the chances are less than 50% that your marketing emails are landing in the prospect's inbox. And in the vast majority of cases, you wouldn't even know. And here's the scary part. If you're sending those from your main email address, then your non-marketing messaging, things like invoices, delivering client files, notes to clients, those things may not be delivered and they may be going into spam as well. Ever had that issue? Ever had stuff that you've sent to clients just disappear, or days later they find it in their spam folder and you have no idea why? Yeah, that's why. So today we're going to break down email deliverability, and in the end we're going to give you a page full of resources that you can use to put in best practices around email deliverability, and we're going to give you some of those today. Stuff that you can use right now so that your email gets delivered the way you intended it to. Now, let's start with the term I used a minute ago, ESP, Email Service Provider. These are the companies that provide the servers through which your email flows, whether you're sending or receiving. The two 800-pound gorillas in this space, as you may have guessed, are Apple and Google. Apple currently controls about 60% of the email globally. About 27% is controlled by Google, and then Outlook comes in at a distant third at 4%. Now here's the thing. The ESPs, the email service providers, have begun to change the rules in the last 18 months faster than ever before. Are the ESPs or the spam blocker algorithms, are they the enemy? Absolutely not. They're doing the world a service so that you don't get inundated with messages from the King of Burundi asking you to handle cash for a $10 million commission. According to Symantec, almost 85% of all email that's sent and received is actual spam. And the vast majority of it you never see because the ESPs and the spam blockers are doing their job. So they're our friends. Paulie, my messages are legit. They should go through. And therein lies the rub. The ESPs, the spam blocker algorithms that the ESPs use, have an incredibly complex problem to solve. And guess what? They don't always get it right. Legit messages do get filtered out, and it happens all the time. So, how do you prevent your email marketing messages from getting blocked by the ESPs and spam blockers? First of all, you need to understand that the spam blocker algorithms and the search engine algorithms are similar in that there's not just one factor that goes into your website ranking high on Google, right? Same thing applies to email service providers, of which Google is one, by the way. And that is, there are multiple factors that go into and affect the deliverability of your email. And if you don't follow a suite of best practices, you're going to get dinged. And that means you're going to get blocked and your email is never going to make it to your intended audience. So let's dig in. There are two main causes of why your email would get flagged or blocked by a spam blocker algorithm. Number one is your domain reputation. And number two is the content and formatting of your actual email messages. First, let's start with domain reputation. Every domain, for example, my main domain is paulschmidtvoice.com. Every domain has configuration settings called server settings or DNS settings, domain name server settings. And you manage these through your domain provider. In other words, if you purchased your domain through Google, then that's where you would manage your DNS, your domain name server settings. And when it comes to email, there are three main settings in your DNS settings that you need to be vigilant about and that need to be properly configured. They are number one, SPF, number two, DKIM, and number three, DMARC or DMARC. Now, I'll put the link in the description and show notes to a page on my website where we'll include three documents, one each for SPIF, DKIM, and DMARC. And these documents will show you how to configure these settings properly in your DNS settings at your domain provider. Now, once you've configured your DNS settings properly, the next thing you're going to do is set up a new domain. Why Do you remember earlier when I said your non-marketing messages can be affected if your domain reputation suffers from your marketing messages? This is why. This new domain should be different from and separate from your main domain. And more importantly, you should only use this new domain to send your marketing emails. That way, if your marketing domain gets dinged for reputation, it won't affect your main domain, and you won't lose things like client files and invoices and God knows whatever else. Now, let's talk about the second main cause of your emails getting flagged by the spam blockers, and that is the actual content and formatting of your email messages. Now, get a pen and paper ready because I'm going to give you 6 best practices for email content and formatting that will vastly reduce the likelihood that the spam blockers will flag your email and block it. Number 1, get the links out of your email. Spam blockers look for links, especially the first time you email somebody. Take all the fancy links out of your fancy email signature, and I'm not criticizing, I had to do that myself. Now, the one exception is one single link to your website, which ostensibly is the whole purpose of your emails, to get people to check out your site and your demos. If you can hold off sending that link until the second email, then that's recommended. Number 2, images and attachments. Images and attachments are big flags for spam blockers. So this is why you should never send your demos, unless it's a very rare case, as an attachment. Always send it as a link to your website. And again, we already talked about links. 86, all your images from your signature, from the text, from the body of the email, get all the attachments off the email, and you'll be good to go. And yes, that includes any images in that fancy signature you paid for, but we'll talk about that in a minute. 3rd, don't format your text. Spam blockers look for formatted text, things like crazy colors, bold or italicized text, underlining, things like that. And my God, please don't put any special characters, things like stars or emojis or anything like that in your body of your email, especially in the subject line of your email. Number 4, avoid spam trigger words. This one gets a little hairy because the spam blocker algorithms are always evolving, and so there's no real set short list of words to always avoid. That list evolves as the rules for the spam blocker evolve. That said, HubSpot published a list of 394 spam trigger words that we'll link to in the resources page as well. So you can download that and scan your email for those words. 394 is a lot, but generally you want to avoid words that are hypey, that are urgent, that are needy, that are salesy or manipulative. Number 5, keep it short. Long content, if you're going to write a customer a novel, that could trigger the spam blockers and it could piss off the client. Keep your wording simple and concise, and that's good not only from a spam standpoint. Is that a spam point? But it's also better customer service. Don't bore them with a ton of words. And finally, number 6, A/B test your messaging. In other words, create 2 versions of each email that's going out. Put them out into the world and test them. As a business marketer, which is what you are for your voiceover business, you should always be part data scientist. In other words, putting messaging out into the world and seeing how it performs and adjusting it constantly. Which version gets open most? Which version gets replied to most? Which version gets clicked most if there's a link? And yes, which one has the most bounces? Compare your A version to your B version and figure out which one works better. Then create a new version and test it against that. Now, I've put together a page with a ton of resources for you around email deliverability. I mentioned the HubSpot document with the trigger words. I'll put that in there. The documents I mentioned about DNS settings. It'll all go into this one easy-to-find page, and I'll put the link for that in the description below. Now, we get deep into the weeds on email deliverability in the VO Freedom Master Plan. If you want more information on that course, click the link in the show notes or description below. Show notes if you're listening to us on the audio podcast, the description if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you'd like to sign up for my Move, Touch, Inspire newsletter, which is published every week just for voice actors and creative entrepreneurs, then click that link in the description and show notes below as well. As always, I'm super happy, grateful, and glad that you're a part of this channel, that you're a part of the conversations that we have on this channel and in the voiceover community at large. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll see you back here again next week.